Liliana stood outside the biblioplex watching the bright parade of students as they passed. She could almost feel the weight of her old Witherbloom uniform and pulled absently at the collar of her professor's coat. She had to be ready for any trouble that could befall Strixhaven. She corrected herself. When trouble befalls Strixhaven. Hey everyone, Simon here for the Ether Hub and another tabletop tale. Today I officially joined the Witherbloom College of Strixhaven School of Mages. It's just right college for me, you know? I just can't see myself joining any... Okay, enough of that. I'm of course in Lorehold. Every time I think I'm done with stories, they just pull me back in. They also accept elephants, which is a plus for a man of my size. Yeah, self-deprecating humor. Great way to start. No matter what college you fancy in this collegiate set, if you're interested in minoring in Strixhaven lore, well then you're in the right class. I'm Lorehold Professor Simon. Yes, I got my wand at the ready right here, and today we start our curriculum on the official Strixhaven story. So get ready class, it's time for a lesson. In the seemingly endless halls of the biblioplex, where arcane knowledge from countless worlds lined shelves that had seen the rise and fall of empires, it seemed as though the only sound on the whole plane of Akarvios was the click of heels on stone. Professor Onyx, as she was known here, took a deep breath as she walked, inhaling the smell of old paper and the familiar ozone that always seemed to accompany magic. She needed a break from yet another insufferable meeting. For all the wisdom and learning in this place, it was populated with some remarkably thick-headed individuals. Case in point, despite her considerable renown throughout the multiverse, the other professors of Strixhaven hadn't recognized Liliana Vess when she introduced herself by an entirely different name. That hadn't surprised her though. The school had always been that way, even since she'd been a student so many years ago, always wrapped up in its own little problems. There was something calming about the weight of all those books, tomes, and scrolls around her. They seemed to wrap the place in a kind of hush. When the students arrived, the campus wouldn't be nearly so quiet, but for the moment, she savored the sense of solitude as she wandered the stacks. A rustling sounded from up ahead. With a twinge of annoyance, Liliana pictured that perpetually chattering codex. It most likely would be coming around the corner any minute now. As she rounded the next bend though, it wasn't the school's magically animated book she saw in the stacks. "What are you doing?" she said. The figure froze, their hands still reaching for another book to add to the pile at their feet. Liliana stepped forward. "Students aren't to arrive for another..." The words fell away as a streak of purplish light flew from the figure's hand. It grazed her arm, and the room suddenly seemed to buckle and sway as the sickening sensation sped throughout her body. With a gesture of will, she isolated the spell's effect and then squashed it. An amateur's work, yes, but none of the 5 colleges of Strixhaven taught magic of this nature. "So," she said, a swirling current of deathly energy weaving through her hands, calling up her own magic. "You're not just here for summer sessions, I take it." The figure was masked, she could see now. The space where its eyes should be were covered with a smooth, flat metal. She'd heard of the Oriq, of course. The school was full of concerned whispers about the secret society of mages, the ones obsessed with forbidden magics and power at any cost. She hadn't expected to see one so soon, though. "I know what you are," she said. The intruder looked towards the hall, then back at Liliana. "Then you know that your days are numbered." "Professor Onyx?" A vaguely familiar voice called from one of the nearby halls. Liliana spun in the direction of the sound, spell-charged hand raised. Dean Shali Talonrook stood at the end of the hall, frowning. "Are you alright?" When she turned back, the intruder was gone. Only the pile of books and scrolls on the floor showed that they had ever been there at all. Liliana collected herself, letting the magic dissipate. This was no time to draw more attention to herself. "Yes, I just thought I saw something in the stacks. Have the faculty moved on to the next topic at hand?" Dean Talonrook clicked her beak, her huge dark eyes filled with annoyance. "Dean Nassari is insisting on lengthening this year's session of Mage Tower." Liliana frowned as she touched her arm where the spell had grazed her. Following Dean Talonrook back towards the Hall of Oracles, she glanced toward the books. "Surely, we have bigger problems than Mage Tower." quite right, crooned Dean Talonrook. Liliana stood outside the Biblioplex, watching the bright parade of students as they passed. She could almost feel the weight of her old Witherbloom uniform and pulled absently at the collar of her professor's coat. Across the way, Dean Nassari strutted through the Biblioplex doors, with Dean Lazzetti next to them. Liliana fell into step alongside the deans. Professor Onyx, Dean Lazzetti nodded in greeting. How are you settling in with your classes? Just fine, Liliana said, though I've been hearing some disturbing rumors from the students lately. Dean Nassari laughed. It was an odd sound from an Ifrit, like water streaming over crystals. Well, young minds are wont to create elaborate tales, and I think it's of good sign. Active imaginations and all that. Liliana forced a smile, trying to keep her tone light. Unless they're also playing dress up and skulking through the halls. I would say this is a little more than innocent play. Skulking? Dean Lazzetti arched a brow. And you've seen one of these people? She paused. How to answer this? I saw a stranger in a mask on campus. Whether this was one of these Oriqs, however? That word again! It always sounds so serious. We really don't know if these rumors are any more than a harmless prank, said Dean Lazzetti. That magic the masked stranger had slung at her was far from a harmless prank. We shouldn't underestimate them in any case. The other deans and professors should be warned. Surely the school has some line of defense that we can employ. You mean other than Alabo? Dean Nassari huffed. I'm sure he would love to actually have something to do for a change. Maybe he'll let go of his grudge against me. I was thinking something more than a single golem. Even if these, whatever you call them, do present some risk, our students are hardly helpless lambs, said Lazzetti. They can defend themselves. But then who's going to protect them from each other, said Nassari, gesturing at a nearby courtyard. Liliana could see errant spells sailing into the sky as cheering and shouting filled the air. Another duel. Lazzetti sighed while Nassari laughed. See, with such talent, I don't think they have anything to fear from the Oriq. Dean Nassari, started Liliana, we should really, fine. Together, they moved to break up the battle. Nassari sent a wide swath of water through the crowd, corralling the Prismari students. Vines and roots shot forth from the ground under Dean Lazzetti's command, pulling children away from each other and binding their hands before they could send out any more magic. A young boy grumbled as he followed the blonde girl off the field. This isn't Kylum, Rowan. Liliana frowned, her grays sweeping over their clothes. They were out of uniform, and swords hung from their belts. His short hair was just as bright as hers, their eyes and noses mirrors of each other. Kylum, he said. She knew of a place called Kylum, but it wasn't located on Arcavios. The girl frowned. I know that, Will, but this isn't Eldraine either, and you can't just tell me what to do. Can we please just go, before we get into trouble? Liliana watched as the twins passed her, briefly meeting the boy's gaze. He shot her a nervous smile and hurried past, pulling his sister along with him. They probably weren't Oriq agents, but if they are Planeswalkers, then maybe they could be useful if, when, she corrected herself, trouble arrived at Strixhaven. And yeah guys, that's our first glimpse at what Liliana Vess is doing in Strixhaven as Professor Onyx. We learned a lot that I frankly wish I knew before making some theory videos, and we're in Lorehold, always looking back to learn from our mistakes. It's a great convenient truth for when you make a lot of them. We still don't know exactly why Liliana Vess has come to Strixhaven or why she's disguised herself as a teacher. Learning that she once was a student here in her youth, something that never was really mentioned in her lore before, so it must have been pretty conveniently brushed over in her past. But she doesn't get into why she's exactly there, though we do get a hint that she's expecting some trouble to brew. The big takeaway is the rise of this Oriq threat, the floating metal masks. I know people are going to be looking as a sign of the Phyrexians, and obviously this agent that was caught wasn't a fully Phyrexionized person, but the fact that they are wearing metal-shelled masks makes me think that maybe a Phyrexian has started almost like a cult, gaining followers in an attempt to steal secrets from the school's biblioplex. Either way, these dudes spell bad news, and I'm sure we haven't seen the last of them. So even though all the teachers at Strixhaven can't recognize Liliana Vess from her days as a student, I want to recognize how amazing you guys have been as a community. I've had a renewed sense of passion for making content again, and it's no small part to all the support that you guys have given me. every kind word in the comments, every view, well, it all really helps motivate me to do better, and that's why I'm setting up a fancy camera and spending hours tweaking rendering settings. I still haven't gotten it perfect, but I'm impressing myself with even trying, and it goes down to you guys and me wanting to thank you. Anyway, everyone, class is out of time for today. As a pop quiz, please let me know in the comment sections what you think of the story thus far. Easy points, it's a personal opinion essay. Go at it. And for some extra credit, be sure to leave this video a like, subscribe, and tick that notification bell. Want to be a teacher's pet? Be sure to check out our Patreon page linked in the description below. As always, students, thank you all so much for attending Lorehole College, and until next time, class dismissed.